Just used the shop vac to remove about 12 gallons of water from the bilge. All right. On a beautiful autumn morning, it was time to remove the rudder from the boat with the help of the legendary sailor Paul. But first I had to put a blanket on the neighbor's boat to protect it because that bowsprit was only inches away from my rudder. That'll be fine. What could happen? It's the worst we can do. My plan was to use the block and tackle from the main sheet to lower the rudder to the ground, but because of the angle, I first had to coax it off of the pins with a ratchet strap. I also rigged a couple of other straps and ropes to keep it from swinging when it came free. Of course, I had the camera set up on the wrong side of the rudder, but what's going on here is click by click, I'm moving it up. We had to pause for a moment because that center gudgeon, which I had unbolted earlier and moved upwards, wasn't high enough out of the way. Oh, it's bumping this. Yeah, I didn't think it would. No. Once all pins were clear, I had to untie the ropes that I'd set to keep the rudder from swinging wildly. Get it up at all? Yeah, just like that. Then I had to remove the strap that I'd used to hold the lifting strap close to the boat. As it turned out, most of this stuff wasn't really necessary, but better safe than sorry. Just checking. That rudder is pretty heavy. One side, yeah. At the top there, this whole business, there's bronze plates in there and whatnot. Take that off there. Put it on there so it'll break my back. The next step was to move the block and tackle to the gudgeon on the bottom of the rudder to lift it up onto the sawhorses. The four-way purchase was more than enough to handle the weight of the rudder.
Yeah. I really didn't know what to expect. But I knew that it would be heavier. Between that, I guess that's mahogany and the bronze in there. Yeah. I dreamed of ways I could make myself no. So the battery died. And I had to recharge it. Meanwhile, while I was waiting, I started sanding the good side. Just like the hull, the rudder has a good side and a bad side. Got that copper strip, I think it's copper, off there. A couple screws broke. One had to be drilled out. It looks like this thing was made of various pieces or repaired because there's dowels in there. They did a simple lap joint there. There, sanding up okay. It's going to need a little filling, but it seems to be in good shape. It's solid. I think it weighs, I'm going to guess, 180 pounds maybe. Didn't bring my fish scale. Not sure what these dowels are about. All right, you done? So this screw here was loose. It came right out, and now I see why. It was just in some kind of caulk or flexible sealant. I'm gonna have to epoxy this hole and re-drill it. That's not gonna hold. This whole metal thing here was under tension too, which is kind of weird. So it was just trying to pull the screws out the whole time, especially that one.
Before doing much more sanding, I had to re-drill the screw holes, making them slightly bigger than before, after which I would fill them with epoxy, and then eventually, when it was time to install the strip again, I would re-drill the holes to the appropriate size for the screws. I decided to repair the port side or bad side of the rudder with thickened epoxy instead of trying to scarf a hunk of wood in there. Uh, I think it's going to be good enough for several years at least. In general, that side, other than that area, was about the same as the good side, the starboard side. I had to be careful sanding the trailing edge to make sure I kept things square. Having removed all the paint, I could get a good look at how this thing was put together. And there are some mysteries, like these nails. I'm not sure how long they are. Maybe they're just holding that last little bit on the top. Probably. So with the first sanding pass complete, it was time to clean this thing up. Get the dust off it. It took a minute to look and feel to see if it was warped and that it was the same on both sides. It wasn't warped, and it was pretty fair. Then it was time to swab it down with vinegar. I'm pretty sure I did this a couple of times, laying it dry between passes. I was planning to do quite a bit of fairing of the open grain, so it was very important that I get it as clean as possible. But first, a look at the stern post.
Yeah.
This had been messed with before. You can see the worm damage. You can see some old epoxy it's in there, but it's not really adhering anymore. The best thing to do would be to replace it. But I'm not going to do that. It would be better to scarf it, but I'm probably not going to do that either. I did take the time to pick all the compound out of the old holes, which were fairly blown out, which explains why the bolts were bent. I don't know which happened first, if the wood failed and the bolts got bent from the action of the rudder, or what. Probably the former. There was a dowel used as a plug, but it was held in with something soft. That's not going to work. I decided to put it back in there, but to bed it with more thickened epoxy and fill the holes completely with epoxy to be re-drilled when the pintle is back in position. How are we doing today? A little condensation. Quite a bit of rainwater in the bilge. This is not good. Not good at all. Yeah, there's a lot of condensation in here. I'll try to dry it out. I might wipe it down anyway. Rather than use the bilge pumps to try to get all that water out, I decided to do it the tedious way with a wet dry vac, bucket by bucket. But of course, I couldn't stop there. I went the length of the boat and did a pretty good cleaning of the bilge that day. And the whole time looking for softwood and fungus. Found a lot of weird stuff, but no softwood and no fungus. We're not even done yet. Just used the shop vac to remove about 12 gallons of water from the bilge. I kind of like this teak grate at the stern, even though it doesn't really do anything. Nobody can sit there when the tiller's in place. But I wanted to check underneath it for any trouble. And also to clean it. I suspected the bottom was probably pretty dirty. I was right. Algae or something. And a little bit of dust and generic grime on the supports. Not too bad. And happily, there was no soft wood at all in that corner. A quick scrub with some vinegar solution had it looking 85% better. Part of sprucing up the bulwarks in the bow was removing these boards. They were screwed in place with bronze screws, and I had no idea what they were for, but I was worried that there was rot behind them, so they had to come off. Ventilation slots, kind of a pretty feature. I don't know why they were covered up. They could theoretically let water in, but they also would help air out the whole forward section of the boat. They were clear and no soft wood. I tried attacking the paint here with a heat gun, but gave up pretty quickly. As usual, the paint that was present wasn't going anywhere without a fight. I was starting to pull up wood fiber here. So I decided to fall back and do what I'd done on the bulkhead and just sand off anything that was loose, kind of knock it all down a little bit with the sander, and then fair it up with primer and paint. In a perfect world, one would remove every speck of old paint from this boat and start over, but I don't live in a perfect world, so I'm not going to do that. Another little project to take a break from the hard work was removing these running lights. They need a little attention. They need to be converted to LEDs. And I figured the longer they're hanging out here, the more likely they're going to get more damaged. They're pretty nifty.
Yeah, I got nuts. Yeah.
Having applied a coat of primer to the bows and taken care of the running lights, I thought I'd try to get rid of this shackle on the inner stay. I'd already pickled it with PB Blaster hours before. It was very rusty. I was amazed that I actually got it off with one try. I really didn't want to use a grinder anywhere near that stay.
Came off real easy. Very nice.
Well, that was it for that day. Time to load out the tools and such. I know you're not supposed to do this with power tools, but that sander is 30 years old and on its third cord, and the other one is brand new. It can take it. Anyway, it's a real drag making trips up and down the ladder just to transfer things like this on and off the boat.